Hello and welcome to EM360 Live, a monthly Q&A where we pick the brains of some of the most influential people shaking up the enterprise tech space. My name is Matt Harris, head of content here at EM360, and today I'm joined by Arie van Bennekum. Arie is the co-author of the Agile Manifesto and a business agility pioneer, and we're here today to talk about business agility and full value-based delivery. Arie, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt. Nice to be here.
Yeah, nice to have you, mate. We were just talking about Dutch architecture. It's a shame we couldn't do the whole podcast on
Yeah.
that. Well, just before we get started, for those who may not have heard of you, Arie, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background in agility?
Yeah, I can. So I am, for those who know the Netherlands, I am based 20 kilometers east of Rotterdam, straight east in the countryside, where we have the meadows and the cows and the windmills. I'm born 200 meters away, just straight in front of me. Let me say the career is like being in the healthcare, then going to the army, then becoming a software developer January 1, 1987. I made a dramatic change in 1994 because I didn't feel happy with the way the traditional projects were run and the role I had in there and the waste that I saw. So I started to experiment in working differently. In the beginning, it was rapid application development, and I started experimenting more. Got into the DSDM consortium, these days known as the Agile Business Consortium. Was very active in that organization, in the international community, trying to do everything. And then in February 2001, I represented the DSDM consortium and the DSDM framework in the weekend that we wrote the Agile Manifesto. And from there forward, afterwards, nothing happened, right? After writing the manifesto, the first couple of years. So I was doing commercial projects, Agile delivery. We didn't call it Agile, but, Agile delivery. And then from let's say 16, 17 years ago, Agile became more and more a topic in the world. And where Agile feels for me very natural. And it was hard to get for me why organizations had so much trouble to adopt it. I started to dive into that one, came into the complications of an Agile transformation, started working on that a lot, like the last, 13, 14 years, almost full time on that one. And within the group of the authors of the Agile Manifesto, I think the other ones represent their own framework, they write books about and they talk about. And for me, it's more about, okay, it's great that we have frameworks to go to. Agnostic framework. You use practices from multiple frameworks to be that Agile organization. But the big question is, from where you are today, how do you get there? And even if you are an Agile organization, how can you get to the next level? And that's what we call Agile transformations, and is what I do for many years.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, thank you for that. And, before we really dive into that, value-driven delivery in the Agile world, could you just, give your definition on, what agility really is and what that value from a business perspective really is as well?
Yeah, so for me, what agility really is that you try to avoid delay in bringing a better business value. And business is not the right word because it's also for not-for-profits and governmental organizations, but there's also value in there. So it's about avoiding delay, bringing better value with a better internal quality into operations. That's what for me agility is. So you want to cut out all the delays. And when it comes to value is for me the only drive to do anything. I mean, the first question I ask when the client asks me to do a delivery is, okay, why do you want this? What is it supposed to bring to your organization? And I'm not talking about a new workflow, but I'm talking about, if you want a new workflow, what is that supposed to bring to your organization? Is it to bring efficiency, following legal requirements, bringing financial value, bringing better market share? What is it that you want to achieve business-wise to make that happen? And that's for me the value drive.
Yeah, that makes sense. And how can you really, deliver that value to the customer? And what main changes should companies make to master that delivery of value?
Yeah, so I think you have three things that you want to do, right? One, you need to make sure that you are as efficient as possible. Cut out delays and toll gates and redundant documentation and those kind of things. The second one is that you want to bring something into production that is working well from the moment that you bring it there, that you don't have to do all that rework. Because if you are inefficient, you lose time. If you have rework, you lose time. And the other one is you want to make sure that you deliver the right thing, that the organization needs, not even what people say they want, but what the organization needs. And that means that you bring the best matching value at that moment in time in the fastest way, without any rework and delay to the organization. And I think if you look at what that might be, I can point out 100 things that will help you to do this, but I think the most important one is the collaboration between stakeholders. And stakeholders are, of course, the business, because they need it to run the organization. But it's also the lateral entities in an organization, like, I don't know, the legal department, cybersecurity department. They don't have an impact on the functionality of the solution, but they look at the solution when you want to go live. Okay, is it meeting our requirements? If it doesn't, you have to do rework, you have a delay. So you want to get those people into that same collaboration modus as well. So the business and all the other stakeholders. And that's the biggest one, because people are not used to do this in a shared responsibility.
Yeah, and you touched on it slightly there as well. But when we sort of come on to the challenges that companies face when, trying to make their operations a little bit more agile, are there any kind of misconceptions around business agility that really do lead to some of those mistakes?
I think, yeah, of course, there are misperceptions everywhere. The ones that I see the most is that people think, if we work in sprints, we are there. If we implement a framework, we are there. But when we wrote the Agile Manifesto, we had already 13 different frameworks represented, all focusing on their own element, to avoid delay, whether it's the quality, the efficiency, or delivering the right thing, the functionality. And that's something that is in business agility very important, because it helps you to maneuver, right? If you deliver in sprints, and every sprint you go to production, every sprint you can maneuver a bit to deliver the best way. So that's one part. So you don't do implementation framework, but you look agnostic at the frameworks that we have and see, depending on the teams even, okay, what do we need to bring it in there? And that the other one is that, when we wrote the manifesto, the word software came in there. We shouldn't have done that. We should have said solution or product maybe, or service. And we have come to the idea that Agile is only for IT, and it's not. You can only do a full delivery, right? That's very important. So you need the stakeholders. If you bring a new product to the market, you have these days almost all the time some sort of software, you have hardware, but also you have your marketing in place and other disciplines that need to collaborate. And that's what people often forget. So development teams think they're ready, and then the shit hits the fan, right? That's the one. And then number 3 is, if you want to go into business agility, it needs to mean that you try as much as possible to be prepared for the future. And that means that, I remember, when I was like, I don't know, 30 years ago, we had an idea box at the reception desk when you got into the office. And innovation was something that you had to do with a proof of concept. And, that would take half a year or a year at least, to make something happen, if anything happened. And we have to understand that in the dynamics of today's world, with an incredible pace of change, whether it's technology, innovation, business models, geopolitical, COVID coming in, you need to be already working on your solutions for the future. So innovation has a completely different role in an agile organization. And that's difficult to handle, because we tend to focus on the delivery that needs to happen. And that's always more difficult than we thought. And the next step that will happen is that the moment that a dramatic change happens out there, you're not ready with future solutions. And that's also, I'm just grasping a couple of things that are very important. But business agility is about having your organization ready. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one thing that you touched upon there that I really like is that, Agile, it's not just for the IT teams, it's for your marketing teams, it's for, all of these other teams that do make up that company. And we are starting to get through some questions from our audience. And
Sure.
Jack Bradley on LinkedIn has asked, how can you, really foster that culture of agility across the entire company?
Ah, it's a difficult one. When I remember I was in the late 90s going to an organization that had a big struggle with all their projects. And in a row, 3 projects I did, happy client, in budget, on time. And then the CIO came to me and he said, Arie, I understand what you're doing and it's doing well, but we're not going to work like you because it's so complicated. And I thought, all I do is bring people together, stakeholders together. So what's complicated here? But also I know this guy was not a liar, right? So for him, it was complicated. And I thought, what's going on here? So from that moment on, I started checking in. And if you look at an agile organization, if you want to go to a real agile organization, it means that you have different ways of documentation, decision making, collaboration, reporting. All these kind of things are completely different from what we are used to. And what we are used to is dominating our life, because it becomes in your brain, it becomes a given fact. This is the way it is. I remember a couple of years ago, 2 years, 3 years ago, I was doing a proposal and I was using PowerPoint. And as a reply, I got, but a proposal can't be in PowerPoint. It has to be in Word. If those kind of things, it's a paradigm, right? It's a paradigm. And paradigms define your habits. Paradigms define your reflexes. And I want to give you an example. You're in London. I'm in the Netherlands, right? So I can honestly say to you, you guys drive on the wrong side of the road, right?
Yeah.
So I got my driver's license in 1985. And I drive on the right side of the road. And of course, I'm conscious of what I'm doing, the position on the road, but there's a lot of stuff in there that I do even without thinking. Where you look, if you want to make a turn, if you cross, all these kind of things will go automatically. Those are habits. And also, when something happens unexpectedly, my reflexes come into place. And my reflexes are based on driving on the right side of the road. And trust me, you don't want to be next to me driving to the UK, or even worse, in London, right? Because as long as I'm alone in London driving the street, I'm okay. I know that not all the signs are the same, not all the rules are the same. I can learn this, I can be trained to do this. But the point is, the moment the incident happens, is that, my habits come into place, my reflexes come into place. So the big thing in an agile transformation is changing habits and reflexes. Knowledge is, I think, the easiest part, to change knowledge. But to get into this and to understand how it works and to embed that in your system. And one of the things when you go into agile transformation is that, you're going to do something that you didn't do before. And if you go even from agile 2.0 to 3.0, you're going to do new stuff. And the point is, with new things that you do, you don't have really strong habits yet, if you have any habits at all. But the second one is you don't have your reflexes, right? So when something goes wrong, an incident, you just grab into your brain and you look into, okay, what kind of solution do I have? And the bad news is you only have old solutions. You don't have agile solutions. I call it innovating backward, right? Where people, you go to a training, okay, this is how it is, we're going to do it. Something goes wrong. Oh, we have to find a solution. And of course, the old solutions come in, and after 6 months, everything is back to normal as it was. And I think the biggest, if you talk about business agility, I'm talking about the transformation itself in the perspective of what I just explained about business agility. And it means that you have to do that change of habits and reflexes in cohesion together as an organization. And that's not easy.
Yeah, very well said. I definitely think, companies out there looking at, making their processes more agile can definitely take away some, good sort of bits of advice from that. Number one, of course, being don't drive in London. But yeah, one thing I also wanted to touch on as well. So we've got Ella Stewart on the YouTube channel who, wants to ask, what role leadership plays in fostering that business agility as well. When we come to, fostering that culture, when we come to bringing it in, it really does come like all from the top, right?
Yeah. Every question so far, good questions. Also this one. So the leadership team, to give a short answer, is the make or break in any transformation, including an agile transformation. Very often leadership team thinks that, agile is what they do down there in the delivery teams, and I'm okay. But coming back to that massive change of the paradigm change, where you change habits, knowledge, habits, reflexes, people are reluctant to change. You see those academic studies that said 92, 95, 98% of the people don't like change. So here you are, you're in your organization, you're working there for 15 years. We are going agile. Right. So you're sitting in your chair. You have in the current system, siloed system where you are, you have your position, your function. And now you need to change. You're going to a 2-day training or 3 or 4 or maybe 5, right? And then you're expected to know everything. And you don't. And you don't want to change. Change is difficult because getting out of your comfort zone, right? So what helps you in an agile transformation is your leadership team is the role model. So they need to work agile. They need to serve the teams. They need to help the teams in an agile way, which means that in any agile transformation, the leadership team needs to be ahead of the teams in that transformation because they need to be the role model. As well, when the teams go into transformation, the changes that let's say decision making, right? The changes that you make there are very often, formalized processes from, okay, this is how we do it, acceptance or, whatever kind of process that you have. And now we go into this agile way of working. And now you have to, do it in an agile way. And that change is connected to roles and functions of people and positions. So that change is very often made in a formal way. And that formal change cannot be done by the delivery team. So next to the role model, it's also bringing the formal change in the organization, leading it and approving it and going there. And the third one is I was just talking about innovating backward. Leadership teams have to understand that the teams that are now agile teams and are going to work, they will make mistakes, they will have their struggles. And instead of pushing them back in old habits, they need to motivate them, help them, and to serve them to find an agile solution for their agile problems. So it's role modeling, facilitating change, and sustaining the change. Very important.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And let's say, for argument's sake, that that the leadership's all on board. You've got agile across the entire company, across your stack. Michael Lodge on LinkedIn asks, how important is it for a company's clients and partners to be ready for that agile transformation as well? Do they also need to be ready and willing and as ready as you are to make it work?
It depends a little bit on what the client relationship is. It depends a little bit on what the partner relationship is. But you have to just understand, I'm going to do something here. I'm going to make a new solution, put it into the market, into operations. And everybody who is connected to that process needs to be part of it, right? So you have to make sure that if you, for example, a question that I get so often is, oh, we have an IT supplier, they do all the projects for us. Sometimes, often even, in India or in China and or in Eastern Europe, they have development centers. So how does that work? Now, if they are from the same company, you can bring them in. But what if you have your company in the UK and your IT provider is a separate company, like you are their client in Romania or let alone India with a big time difference, right? You need to work as one. I think one of the most important things in delivery is that you work in a shared responsibility. And if you have the different stakeholders in a delivery, so the business, development, the marketing, cybersecurity, the legal department, you have to work as one. And if one of those entities that I just mentioned is an external organization, you have to find a way to integrate them in your development process. Yeah, that's very important. And
Yeah, that
clients,
makes a lot of sense.
yeah. So sorry to say, clients even more, because if you are, simple thing, internet insurance, right? So how do you bring your new product to the market? Now you might have a very standard product that people just go on and they search for it and they come to you, and that's fine. Then your customer journey needs to be perfect. But how do you do this? You can only make your customer journey perfect with your customer, right? There is nobody who can think for your customer as good as the customer can itself. So you have to bring that one in as well. So working with, how do I say it, top-notch clients on developments, or with your providers on the other side that we just talked about, is very important. That's not easy, but that's part of the transformation process that you have to go through. How do you do contracts? That kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, you make it sound easy, but yeah, obviously in practice it may not be as
No.
straightforward, of course.
No, the transformation process is difficult. And what if you have? I had a client once a couple of years ago, and they said to me, "Oh, Arie, we're going into agile transformation. Great." He said, "But we just closed a 3-year contract with an IT provider who was very waterfall. What do we do?" Yeah, what do you do? I mean, agile is not Harry Potter's magic wand or something, right? Yeah, sometimes you have to find solutions there. Yeah, be creative.
Yeah. And the final question from our audience comes from Fraser on our YouTube channel. And as you said, one size doesn't fit all. It's kind of like the nature of agile. But do you have any kind of, specific, words of wisdom, or the biggest and easiest road to success when it comes to, most agile problems that you can sort of share with the audience?
Yeah, I think, man, I have now like 25 things I want to say, right? But I think what is very important, that you keep your mind and your heart open to work agnostic. And what do I mean with, say, working agnostic? We have different frameworks in the agile world. I think, when we wrote the manifesto, we had 13. We are now maybe like serious frameworks, like 20 maybe. And you need to understand that every one of those frameworks is focusing on a specific topic. When we wrote the manifesto, the 3 main issues that we tried to solve in working differently were quality, efficiency, and value delivery. And depending on your organization, but also in your organization, the different teams that you have, they might have different needs. One team struggles with efficiency, another team struggles with a happy client, another team struggles with the quality of the code. So you need to be aware, and this is where agile coaching comes in, and that's a big body of knowledge, you need to be aware of those frameworks with your agile coaches. You need to be aligned on it. And to give you an idea, I cannot imagine working without practices in anything that I do, whether it's an agile delivery, when it's a transformation, or whatever. In anything that I do, I cannot imagine working without practices from the Agile Project Management Framework, with practices from Lean and Kanban, very important to me, and practices from extreme programming. I am already going through value delivery, efficiency, and quality, right? And this is just my way. There is no right or wrong, but what is right, if you are open and knowledgeable, and if a team or a larger group of people has a problem, that you can identify, hold on, this is an efficiency problem. Let's look into this framework, because there they have practices that will help you out. And that kind of thinking, that's where you need to be. Certificates are great, but it's more than having a certificate. It's about a deeper understanding of agnostic agile.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Michael on our LinkedIn audience has just jumped in as well with, have you got any more specific advice for C-level executives in really supporting that agile transformation, perhaps from a CEO perspective or from a COO perspective?
Again, do you have an hour or two or three?
Yeah,
um,
unfortunately not.
One thing that I found out that that really work well is, so I go into transformation, and you have, like, in the first cycle of transformation, you take like what, 20 to 30 teams or something, and the management, they're trained, and you talk about it, and etc. But for them, it's difficult to grasp what's happening, and this, I'm talking the top, but it can also be middle management, right? Doesn't really matter, but it has to include the top as well, is what I call the Gemba walk. What I do with the leadership teams is I take them on a tour and visit the team spaces. And we go in there talking with the teams. The teams have their backlog, their plan board, their burn down. They can explain what's going on in there. What I like, what I always perceive is very helpful, is what I call the innovation radar. And the way I do it, I make a big dartboard, and I don't know, every pie chart every piece of the pie in the dartboard is a topic. It could be leadership team, it could be quality of code, it could be the hardware, it could be the tooling, it could be whatever it is. And the teams, they do their retrospectives. Every team have their own retrospectives, and the biggest needs we put on that innovation radar. And the closer to the bullseye, the more important it is. And then, you do that Gamba walk, and all of a sudden, flat in their face, this management team will see, hey, we have structural problems here because we have 10 teams with the same problem. Look, there it is, very urgent. And we have that and that one. This one is okay. Those kind of things are really, really helpful when it comes, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, right? So leadership teams tend to sit down behind the desk and do whatever they do. The moment that you have them working agile and do their agile work on their portfolio that they're working on for the next, 60, 90 days, if they have an OKR cycle, those kind of things that I just described are really helpful, because they have very exclusive insights for the management team about what's going on. And then also you start connecting strategy to delivery. Very often there's a big gap between strategy and delivery. But now those managers walk around and they say, oh, this team, they make something for me. What's going on here? And now all of a sudden they can connect. That's helpful.
Yeah, well said. Very well said. Yeah, I definitely think that a lot of C-level executives listening to this show will definitely have some to take away from that. My final question, because we are running out of time, Arie, unfortunately, but my final question is one that I ask every guest that comes on the EM360 podcast. And that is, if you could switch jobs with anyone for a day, if you weren't a business agility pioneer, who would it be and why?
You know what I would like to do? I in my opening, I said that I worked in the healthcare, eh?
Yeah.
I would like to go back, not for a day, but for a month, working as a nurse, helping people. Okay. I would love that. Yeah, I would love that. And you can have, in the Netherlands, the way we are organized, we have, how do you call that? Care at home. Let me put it like this. So, you have a problem at home. Maybe you had an accident and you're not in the hospital anymore, but you're home and you need care. That's one way. The other way is, of course, in a hospital, right? I don't know. But I would like to be in the healthcare back for a while. Yeah, I would love that. If I had to make a choice, I would do that.
Yeah, no, that's really nice answer. I was expecting a astronaut or fireman or something like that.
No.
No, nice one. Arie, thank you so much for coming on today. I really do appreciate your time.
My pleasure, Matt. And to the people who are listening, if you want, you can connect to me on LinkedIn. I have a tendency, if you ask me a question in the direct message, I always try within half a day to answer, at least to give you a sort of a push in the right direction. What is the right direction, in my opinion, right? So whatever that means. But feel free to connect, and who knows?
Exactly that, and we'll be linking all links to Arie's profiles and channels down below. We'll be back next month with another episode in our EM360 live series. But until then, make sure you subscribe to this live show on all major platforms. Follow the conversation on our socials at EM360 Tech on Twitter and LinkedIn, And for more great daily content, please head on over to em360tech.com.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Matt.
Arie.